Guys, today we're back and we're looking at the Tamron 70-300 F4.5-6.3. This is the world's smallest and lightest telephoto zoom for Sony E mount cameras to date. And Tamron is continuing the trend, bringing us some really great lenses, budget-friendly lenses, without sacrificing a lot when it comes to performance. So here's some specs on this lens to get you going. If you don't know who I am, my name's Stefan Malloch. I do a lot of photography and filmmaking news reviews and tutorials. So if you do enjoy this type of content, you like this video and it helps you out, consider hitting that like and subscribe button and join the community. Anyways, who do I recommend this lens for? Not really a professional. It's got a slower variable aperture and it's gonna struggle a little bit in low light. If you are, however, a beginner to intermediate and you're looking to get into birds, wildlife, or sports or something like that, this is definitely worth a second look. So we're gonna break it down, everything that you need to know to figure out whether or not it's a good fit for you. And as usual, we're gonna dive right in and start off with the build and features. So jumping into a quick unbox, you will find the bare bones basics, as this is a budget friendly lens. You're gonna get the lens, a lens hood, and that's pretty much it. No case or anything like that, and that's all you really need and expect at something this price. Now for me, this lens looks and feels very good, and it's very comparable to the whole line of Tamron lenses that we've come to know and love. It is a mainly plastic or composite build and measures only 8 3/8 inches long with the lens hood installed and only 5 7/8 inches long without. And weighing only 1.2 pounds means you can throw this in your bag and it's not going to be a huge burden, which is great for a telephoto when you need some extra reach. As expected, there are no buttons or switches on this lens and it's not image stabilized. Now it does extend as you zoom, bringing it out to 10 3/4 inches at the very longest with the lens hood installed. The grippy oversized zoom ring is a nice touch, and the manual focus ring is small and turns easily, but you, just like me, probably won't be using it that much because of its great autofocus. On the front you'll find 67mm filter threads, which is consistent with most of the Tamron line. On the back you'll find a nice metal mount, and of course a little rubber gasket for confidence when you're out in the weather and the rain and whatnot for weather sealing. Overall, for build and features, it looks good, it feels good. It doesn't have any of the bells and whistles of course, but you can't really complain for the price. An amazing size and weight, and I give this lens a generous 4 stars. Okay, so let's touch on the value next of this lens, and honestly, it's straight up incredible. Coming in at under $500 US, this is the cheapest and probably the best value telephoto lens that you can buy for Sony E mount cameras. Not only does it come with a 6-year warranty in the US, it's also less than half the price of the native Sony comparable. Of course, there are other options these days like the Sigma 100-400, which does have a bit more reach and the advantage of image stabilization. Or maybe you're shooting a crop sensor camera, in which case you should consider the 70-350 Sony variant. Of course, with lenses these days, the sky is the limit, but if you are on a budget and considering a telephoto lens in this range, I would definitely give the Tamron top marks, and I give it 5 stars for value. So diving right into performance now, this is what you want to see anyways. Let's have a look at the aperture characteristics of this lens to begin with. This lens does have a variable aperture, with its fastest being f4.5, starting at 70mm and going all the way to 110mm before you hit f5. It's not far after that at 150mm that you hit f5.6. And then you've got f5.6 all the way down the range a little bit to 240mm. From 240mm to the lens's longest 300, you will hit your slowest maximum aperture now of f6.3. And that's typical and pretty much what you can expect out of the aperture range on this telephoto. So here's a few of my favorite shots with this lens so far, and I have to say that I'm very impressed with the performance of this thing across the board, especially given its price. But as you can see, it's very versatile. It's not just a wildlife lens, this is really a jack of all trades lens. It's got some reach, and I found myself getting some really interesting landscape shots, but you can also get some family and even portrait shots with it as well. But what about the autofocus speed and reliability? Well, it's actually a lot better than I thought it was going to be. Here's my dog running pretty quickly, and it keeps up pretty darn well. But we all know the ultimate test is birds in flight, and here's an example of that. It's important to keep your expectations in line, and the overall keepers were about 60 to 80% of all the pictures that I shot, which is pretty darn good. For a beginner or intermediate photographer, these are fantastic results. Now obviously this isn't a lens made for video specifically, but it actually does pretty good in that case. With its versatile focal range, you can get out there a little bit and get some interesting footage, especially with wildlife and whatnot. And like most of Tamron's lenses these days, its quick autofocus and algorithms means that it's reliable and you're going to get the shot when you need it. Here's an example of some real-time focusing shot on my A7 III, and it's worth noting that it will vary depending on the camera that you have, of course, because your lens and your camera are working together. Now, I was really surprised by the lack of hunting with this lens, even from its minimum focus distance all the way out to infinity. Quite impressive. Okay guys, we're diving into the sharpness and optics of this lens now, having a quick look here at 70mm wide open at f4.5. The center of the image is actually really impressive, very sharp. The corners, however, are bad. They're very bad here at 70mm, and the fall off is just incredible. I don't know if I've seen a lens quite this bad when it comes to how good it is in the center, and then about a third of the way through the image, it just really starts to fall apart, and the edges are just horrid. Really bad performance here at 70mm. And again, keep this in mind that this is a telephoto lens and you might not be overly concerned with 70mm in the corners wide open. But as you can see here, as we stop down, you do definitely get some improvement, but it's really not a great performance really at any point. Even stopping down as far as f11, f16, f18. Here we are at f18. The corners are definitely better. So if you are shooting landscape or something and you really want that corner sharpness at 70mm, you're gonna have to stop way down because again, the difference in the corners at wide open f4.5 are a massive difference. But how about zoomed all the way into 300mm where it really matters? Well, this is a totally different story. The center is incredibly sharp, and you can see some purple fringing or some chromatic aberration here, and this is to be expected of a lens in this price range, but it does a pretty decent job. The corners here at 300mm wide open now at f6.3 are much better. And again, as we stop down, we can see a further improvement into those corners, which is actually better than I really expected. So that's good to see that where it really matters here. Down in the corners here at 300mm, a great performance across the board. And I am really happy to see that, especially for the price of this lens once again. Let's have a look at the distortion and vignetting of this lens. Once again, here at 70mm wide open at f4.5, there's not a heck of a lot of distortion to tell you about. However, if we use our profile correction, we can see a heck of a lot of vignetting wide open. And having a look as we stop down here at f6.3 and f9, you can see that vignetting pretty much disappear. But as far as 70mm is concerned, the distortion is pretty well controlled. And once again, here's the difference between the profile correction turned off and here it is on. So not too bad at all. Having a look here at 300mm, you can definitely notice some pincushion distortion. Again, clean that right up with profile correction. Definitely some vignetting to note, regardless of your focal length that you're shooting at. And again, as we stop down, you can see it improve just a little bit, but you will have to rely on your in-camera correction or your profile correction to clean that right up. Overall, again, for the price, this lens performs great when it comes to the sharpness and optics, with the exception really of 70mm wide open unless you stop down a little bit. This lens does have 7 aperture blades to give you some decent out of focus backgrounds, but it's not going to be anything mind-blowing, nor is it designed to be. Along with its variable aperture, it also has a variable minimum focus distance, the closest being 31.5 inches that you can get to your subject. So the performance of this lens has exceeded my expectations for what it is. I think it's a great option for people just getting started out, looking for a little bit more reach that really don't want to break the bank. Here's another example of what the focal length you can expect is going to look like in real time. You've got some extreme versatility from 70 to 300 and all the way up to 450mm if you enable crop mode. Sure, it doesn't have image stabilization, which you might notice when you're hand holding at longer distances, but it shouldn't make too much of a difference because you do have IBIS in most of Sony's cameras. Overall, for performance, I think it's great for what it is, and I give it a solid 4 stars. So wrapping up guys, I'm happy to say that this is yet another one of Tamron's lenses that are great budget options that don't sacrifice a heck of a lot of performance. As always, here's a full list of my personal pros and cons for this lens, but make sure you drop down your thoughts down in the comments. Overall, I give this lens a solid 4 stars, and if you're a subscriber, you know that I like to rate things on a scale from never think about again to consider to definitely buy. And in this case, if you are on a budget or just looking for an inexpensive telephoto lens to get you started, I would absolutely recommend this lens to you as a definite buy. So there's my thoughts on the Tamron 70-300. Yet again, another great option from Tamron for you that doesn't break the bank. If you want to pick this lens up, if you're ready to buy it, I will drop affiliate links down in the description for you. Thanks so much for watching, guys. If you like this video, hit that like and subscribe button, join the community, and like always, make mistakes, be yourself, and get out there and take some more pictures. See you next time.